And it's a pleasure to be with you virtually today. Every year, this forum brings together thought leaders, economic developers, innovators, and leaders from corners of the Americas. Whether you're representing government, academia, finance, or business, we're all focused on what the future holds and how we'll strategically steer our economies in the most sustainable direction. Forward-looking companies can't afford not to take a long-term strategic view. They are asking themselves, what will drive the next chapter of growth and what will spur innovation? As a fact, the gaming sector has always been a leader in innovation. Innovation has always been at its heart of its success. Ontario's video game industry is a North American employment leader, growing by more than 144% since 2013 and employs nearly 5,000 workers. Ontario is a leading place to invest when it comes to gaming, as a global leading in artificial intelligence, intellectual property, and access to talent. I can recall as I was leaving university in 1997, when the reigning world chess champion was defeated by a supercomputer. IBM's Deep Blue made history that day and resonated around the world. It was that moment when the majority of us realized that artificial intelligence was possible and real. And here we are more than 20 years later, on the cusp of technological advances not seen since the Industrial Revolution, where AI breakthroughs will be as significant as automobiles, electricity, and even splitting the atom. AI has the power to unlock new ways to do business, new ways to harness energy sources, even new ways to save lives. And gaming companies are taking advantage of AI technologies. Ontario is indeed very proud of its AI roots. The godfather of AI, Geoffrey Hinton, did much of his research at the University of Toronto. He was instrumental, along with many others, in the founding of the Vector Institute for Artificial Intelligence. Vector is a fantastic institution that is a great example of collaboration, bringing together government, academia, and business to provide the best research, leadership, and talent for the benefit of all Ontarians, of all Canadians, and people around the world. Vector has become a catalyst for private sector AI investment in our province, with companies like LG, Samsung, Cerebras, Gatic AI, Punch, Arctic Wolf, Amazon, and Google Brain. They have all chose to invest here. In fact, there are more than 300 AI companies of various sizes in Ontario. Vector, and the growing AI ecosystem that surrounds it, will help Ontario companies develop previously unimaginable AI solutions. It will further our province as an AI leader, increasing the number of companies moving here in Ontario that will lead to job creation, growing revenues, and a better economy. Part of remaining competitive is also how we protect our intellectual property. IP rights are necessary to fully capitalize on opportunities and ensure the money we spend on innovation and research is being protected. Last year, Ontario announced the launch of an intellectual property action plan to help protect the value of our homegrown ideas. The action plan will help drive the province's long-term economic competitiveness by prioritizing the generation, protection, management, and commercialization of intellectual property. We feel strongly that providing resources that support the entire IP pathway from the lab to the private sector investment to the market will help Ontario's homegrown ideas and products to fuel Ontario's innovative ecosystem. A deep talent pool is also essential for a vibrant gaming sector to grow and compete. And Ontario has just that. Our post-secondary institutions like Sheridan College, Seneca College, University of Toronto, and the University of Waterloo produce more than 55,000 STEM graduates each year while featuring unique gaming programs. We also see the importance of the interactive digital media industry to the province's economy. Ontario's video game industry alone is a North American employment leader and is growing. And by offering interactive digital media companies a range of world-leading tax credit, and programs to make staffing and operating even more affordable, Ontario is a great place for a digital media company to call home. As a whole, a strong ICT sector is critical to Ontario's economy. In 2019, it accounted for more than $43.3 billion of Ontario's GDP. This sector employs more than 250,000 people, and we are second only to California in terms of the number of ICT companies we have. But the bottom line is we want to do more. We want the world to know that Ontario is open for business. With economic uncertainty related to COVID-19, it is critical to position Ontario as a top-tier destination for job-creating investment. We have made it easier for Ontario companies to remain competitive so that they can grow the economy and create good jobs through actions including the Better for People, Smarter for Business Act and the recent Supporting Recovery and Competitiveness Act, where we continue to reduce the regulatory burden of red tape. And to make it even easier for companies to take advantage of all Ontario has to offer, we have launched a new investment attraction agency last spring called Invest Ontario. The team at Invest Ontario is focused on improving the investor experience by offering high quality, timely, and tailored insight intelligence on business and market opportunities, incentives, talent, business immigration, and much more. For any company with ambitious plans for the North American market, for any company where people and ideas fuel your growth, Ontario is your natural and strategic partner. Our government is in your corner, and Ontario is rich with opportunity, especially in the gaming sector. So let's chart this path together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, MPP Urek. Thank you so much for setting the stage to our great panel. And we couldn't agree more with you that we have what it takes in Ontario to be a leader worldwide in the video game industry. So my name is Lucie Lalumière. Hello, bonjour. I'm the president and CEO of Interactive Ontario. Interactive Ontario is the trade association representing the video game and interactive digital media industry in Ontario. Our goal is to help our industry achieve long-term prosperity and growth in Ontario. And we will contribute to the digital economy in Ontario in a very significant way. So what is the video game industry in Ontario? We have about 300 video game studios in Ontario. They range from startups to small, medium, large independent studios to multinationals. And they produce games that are enjoyed worldwide by people from all ages. And I love to say that stats, but in Canada, 50%, half of the gamers identify themselves as females. So long gone the days where people think that video game is about people in their basement playing. It is for everybody. And in fact, in Ontario, we produce a range of games for mobile, PC, all consoles and VR platforms, and all genres, from adventures, puzzles, simulations, strategy, casual, narrative games, and so much more. We have a lot of creative, techno-creative talent in Ontario. So we have an exciting industry, and we create the techno-creative jobs that we all need in a digital economy. So today, we're going to talk about the video game industry on the global stage, Canada, Ontario, and we'll spend time talking about what do we need to do in Ontario to claim the leadership position that we can claim on the global stage. So I will be moderating the panel, and without further ado, I'm going to ask the panelists to introduce themselves and their company, starting with Jean-Sylvain Sormeny. Jean-Sylvain.
Thank you, Lucie, and good morning, everyone. So I'm a co-founder and studio head at Snowden Studio, a studio that I founded in 2010. We're based in Ottawa. Currently, the studio is 150 employees, and we basically grown almost tripling size since the beginning of the pandemic. So in 2019, we were 65. Now we're 150. We're servicing the video game industry by providing engineering services and localization QA. Since 2018, the Snowden Studio joined the Keywords Group, a public company based in Ireland. Keywords is over 10,000 employees across the world, in 75 offices and 21 countries.
Wilson?
Thanks, Lucy. Good morning, everyone. My name is Wilson Ng. I'm the CFO of Eukan Games. Eukan Games has been around since 2009, and we're based in Toronto. Our studio is about 100 people large, and we've launched about 20 games in our history, and our most successful titles thus far have been Jeopardy World Tour, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and Ava's Manor.
Dan.
Yes, morning, everybody. My name's Dan Ayub. I'm Vice President and General Manager of Certain Affinity, and I oversee our studio up here in Toronto. Certain Affinity has about 250 employees across Canada and the United States, and we just recently celebrated our 15-year anniversary, so we're really excited about that. Over the course of our history, we've had the opportunity to work with some of the largest game publishers and developers on the planet. We've worked on huge titles like Halo, Call of Duty, and we're really excited to be here today with our colleagues talking about this industry.
Julien.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Julien Lavoie. I'm the Director of Corporate Affairs for Ubisoft here in Toronto. Ubisoft is a French company that has over 40 studios around the world, but has a huge presence here in Canada. There's 7 studios in Canada, including the one in Toronto. There's a large studio in Montreal, one in Quebec City, Saguenay, Halifax, and our latest studio is in Winnipeg. In Canada, we have 6,000 employees making video games of all kinds. And we're known at Ubisoft for some of the largest franchises in the games industry, including Far Cry, Assassin's Creed, Splinter Cell, and Just Dance.
All right, so we'll start by talking about the global industry, and I'm going to set the stage with some data. So globally, there are 2.7 billion players worldwide. And I mentioned it earlier, 50% of the gamers in Canada are females, and you can see around the world, people from all ages are playing games. The industry in 2020 had a staggering growth due to the pandemic. People discovered that it was a lifeline and a great way to socialize. It generated a staggering $175 billion US worldwide. And also in 2020, it was a record year in terms of investments in our industry with $23 billion invested. So all in all, if you combine movies and North American sports, the video game industry worldwide is bigger than those industries. So it is going to not only continue to be big, but continue to grow for decades to come. So first question is, given the strength of our industry globally, what are the trends we're currently seeing in this sector, and what are the opportunities for video game creators around the world? I'll start with Wilson.
Thanks, Lucy. There's a lot going on in our industry, but one of the biggest trends is that games are really played everywhere. Games are becoming increasingly cross-platform, which has really democratized games for all the demographics. And as you mentioned, regardless of gender or where you are, everyone has a phone, so you effectively have a gaming device with you at all times, so you can play wherever you are, not only when you're at home. Another key trend that has always underpinned video games is that our industry is at the cutting edge of technological innovation because games are early adopters of new technology. Recently, with VR and AR coming into popularity, Pokemon Go was a great example of adoption of AR and geo-based games. AI, ML, MVP, Yurik said it well, with Deep Blue being a part of gaming history as well. I know not totally video games, but both of those technologies play a very big part, whether customer facing or not in video games. The concept of metaverse, which has really come around in the past couple of years, I think, with the rise of Roblox, has been a part of games since the 90s. And blockchain, NFTs, it's a really exciting area of growth because video game companies have been selling virtual goods for a long, long time. And now if you introduce the benefits of ownership to those virtual goods, there's quite a lot of possibilities, very exciting possibilities that open up.
And if I could add, one thing is that games are increasingly a social experience. Gamers really use games to connect with friends and family. And an interesting stat is that the Gen Z generation really identify with games, and that's a core component of their identity. Previous generations may have identified with maybe a music genre, a punk rocker, or someone who's into folk music. But nowadays, it's games that really defined the Generation Z and how they perceive themselves and how they communicate that identity to others. And games also have another dimension to them, which is the narrative and the storytelling potential that they have. Ubisoft has many games that really tell story, that are components of history, that are educational. So these experiences are more than just play, which has always been part of the human experience, but really have a lot of new dimensions that were probably unexpected 20 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would add to that. You certainly, as everyone has been talking through, there's this evolution, right? I think, and you touched on it at the beginning, I think the common image that most people have of gamer and gaming, in fact, is probably, quite wrong. And I think people are always surprised when they see how large the audience has become, how diverse the audience has become, and how it continues to change. Speaking about the growth of that audience, you just look at things like the rise of streamers, influencers that are dedicated entirely to gaming, esports. The concept of just watching people play games competitively is massive, and in several cases, viewership has exceeded, large sporting events like the Super Bowl. Because, this has just become such a corner piece of popular culture right now in a way that I think surprises a lot of people. Along the lines of that evolution, unlike something like, like films, which just kind of like comes out and, then you've got it. Games have kind of evolved as well to be always on, to be continuing. There's like the lifespan of a game has expanded considerably, and a game can continue for years and in some cases decades after it's been launched, and that creates some really amazing opportunities as well.
My colleagues have shown how the games are kind of everywhere now, they're really present, and the industry is seeing the opportunities for growth right now. And we see a lot of countries investing very heavily in what the game industry is. If you're looking, traditionally Nintendo in Japan has been there for a very long time, but you see now huge investment in China through their NetEase and Tencent company. Germany and UK have very well functioning industries now. And now there's new players coming into the field. Australia, Ireland, and some US states like Louisiana are really competing to get these jobs. These jobs are shown to be pandemic-proof, high-paying, and very interconnected, as we mentioned, with all the other industry. So in all of this, Canada is doing also very well. Just one of the facts, Quebec is the third biggest hub for video game development in the world, so we're doing really well globally. And these are jobs of the futures, and many countries recognize it.
So now let's talk about Canada. We just had new data released yesterday. We contribute $5.5 billion to the GDP. That's going to be our contribution in 2021. We create over 32,000 jobs in Canada, and people work in over 900 video game studios from coast to coast. So the next question is, why does Canada, as a country, punch above its weight in the global video game industry? Julien.
Well, I think to understand where we are now in the Canadian video game industry, we really have to look back at how this industry developed, because there's a number of factors that kind of went into the development of this industry. And if I could maybe look at the various decades, the last 40 years, it gives you kind of a different overview of how this industry developed. In the late 1980s, there was one company that kind of started it all for the size of the Canadian video game industry in Canada, and that was Distinctive Software in British Columbia. They were acquired by Electronic Arts, which is now one of the larger players in the industry subsequently, but that company really set the stage for the development of a whole ecosystem around the video game industry in the late 1980s. And then economic clustering really kind of took hold, and a number of other companies were able to set up in British Columbia. And that was the kind of the early years of the Canadian video game industry. In the 1990s, the Quebec government decided to make a strategic decision to attract video games to its economy. Had a lot of the underlying factors for its success. And Bernard Landry, the then premier of Quebec, attracted Ubisoft to Montreal. And now Ubisoft is one of the biggest anchor tenants in the city of Montreal, and a whole ecosystem has really developed around that company. The company did come with some guarantees from the government and some incentives that made the jurisdiction worthwhile and made it a good place to invest and create jobs. And that became a model for how the rest of the country could really develop its own video game industry. In the 2000s, we had the rise of mobile devices. We talked about how everyone has a video game console in their pockets. And that created huge opportunities for the development of an industry that was focused around mobile games. And small companies were able to crop up from coast to coast, creating mobile games. In the last 10 years, we've seen that now 7 of the 10 provinces of Canada have introduced video game development incentives that have really helped the industry develop and grow in unexpected places. And that's why we have hubs of video game development from Newfoundland to Nova Scotia, and a few companies in Prince Edward Island as well. And now with new technologies that we talked about before, whether it's VR or new other connected experiences, the video game industry continues to grow in unexpected ways.
I'm going to reiterate on what Julien just said, but feeding on this, there's really what we call the Acorn models. There's a lot of large studios that is set up foot in different cities in Canada. And those are basically creating, at some point they reach maturity, and a lot of their developers start smaller companies, but they have the experience to succeed in starting their small companies. And now, like, you see an ecosystem where the large player feeds the small players, they mentor, they help, and we really see like a healthy ecosystem where there's a transition between the company. Around that, obviously the education had to adapt, and now we see in all provinces, and in the intro remarks, we saw even we have education centered around gamings in Ontario. We have it also all across Canada, and we have better access to talents. Also, there's all these supporting companies that are setting up around this industry. So tooling, so you can think of Epic that has and Unity that have studios in Canada and developing the tools for the game makers. You have HR, consulting, lawyers, accounting. There's a whole ecosystem of supporting companies. And also not to forget them, but all our supporting associations like Interactive Ontario and ESACs are very important players in our industry.
So now I'm going to turn to Wilson, because you are part of a homegrown, successful, independent producer. So the question is, how do you build such a success story as a homegrown company in Canada?
Yeah, thanks, Lucy. So we started in 2009 with a team of 4, and we started on Facebook Games. We quickly needed help, as the games became a viable business, and with minimal external investment, we had to be really smart with a lot of our hires. So one of the pillars of what makes us work well is our talent, and so that includes talent attraction and retention. And Canada has some of the top tech schools in the world. And there's also many specialized game development, design, and art programs that really we can leverage to train, the future leaders of our industry. Another pillar is that you have to be product driven. So you need great products, obviously, that can deliver new or differentiated experiences. And those are, made up of the people that you have within the company. So all the new ideas that they have, or new or exploitable IP, and any innovations in gameplay, all of those are driven by the people that we have within the studio. And then, alongside the various stages of growth in the company, there's financing and and government incentives are a key part, and all of those are within reach in Ontario, and those are very, very important. And support from incubators, professional services firms, banks, private funding as well are all very important. Finally, the ecosystem, that sort of is supported by the Acorn model, as JS mentioned. We have a lot of supportive industry groups, including IO. Thank you, Lucy, for all your hard work there, and ESAC, and they provide invaluable industry support. But also, as an industry, I find it's more collaborative than others. Many of the peers, companies get together to share what's working, what's not, and it's much more collaborative than many other industries.
Totally agree. Dan, you also are part of an independent company from the US, but you chose Ontario. Why is that?
Yeah, I think a lot of factors come into play. I mean, there's certainly the environment that I think everyone else here on the panel has talked about, right? There's a very attractive environment here. I can say firsthand, I've had the good fortune to work with game companies and developers all over the planet, and Canada really does have a concentration of talent unlike any other place in the world. And, Certain Affinity was very deliberate before making our decision to come here. We were looking at certainly other places within Canada, but also other places within North America and the rest of the world. And it really came down to a lot of things. Well, obviously the final decision was made to set up in Toronto. Toronto's a very metropolitan city, which is has a great place. It's just a great place to live for people and for employees. And, we thought that was going to be fantastic. There's a magnificent educational system here. We heard some of the comments about some of the schools and the university programs and the colleges that are here that are just producing top-notch talent, which is, of course, the lifeblood for any game development studio. You really just need those techno-creative types coming in who can take things up to the next level. And finally, if I had to choose a third point, I would just say how welcoming everyone was here. And I mean everyone, from levels of government, top to bottom. People were extremely welcoming, giving their personal numbers if we needed anything to help us set up. Other game companies as well, right? Traditionally what would be, quote unquote competitors, we're super collaborative and welcoming and more than helpful, and, sharing their stories and sharing tips and just ways to hit the ground running. And, all of those things just come together to form a magnificent environment to set up a new studio.
And we're so glad you chose us. Yes, thank you. Julien, can you expand on the benefit of video game companies to the tech ecosystem?
Well, video games are unique in the way that they are both technological in some ways and creative in others. So the composition of our workforce is quite unique. And sitting at that intersection between creative and technological means that Toronto is a fantastic city for the video game industry, for example, because there's a film industry and, as others have said, a very well-functioning tech ecosystem as well. But I think more broadly, that ecosystem, it really needs to be in place and needs to be fostered in order for the video game industry to be able to thrive. So that's a kind of a two-way relationship. Video game companies have things to contribute to the ecosystem, and the ecosystem also helps to train the talent that will go into to these companies. At Ubisoft, we like to conceptualize that ecosystem under three main banners. The first being the education, which is super critical to forming the next generation of talent and providing a well-functioning talent pipeline to the industry. The video game industry has mentorship opportunities, provides internships for new grads. And works directly with post-secondary institutions on curriculum consultation to make sure that what's being taught in universities is relevant to the industry and that it keeps up with the times. The second dynamic of this ecosystem is entrepreneurship, which is very critical to making sure that there's a variety of types of companies within that ecosystem. At Ubisoft, we have what we call the R&D series, where we invite small up-and-coming studios to submit their prototypes or their early stage games, and the winner of our competition receives $50,000 and mentorship from some of our Ubisoft experts. And those winners over the past 5 years have really reported how that has made a difference. It's a small cash injection, and that mentorship has really helped some of those companies reach the next level or achieve some marketing milestones that they may not have been able to on their own. The third dimension, which is super critical also to advancing the knowledge base within the industry, is research and development. Again, at Ubisoft, we have a very exciting initiative called La Forge, which started in Montreal, and now we have a version of it in Ontario. And it basically is based on technical prototyping, based on academic research. So we partner with researchers from academia, and they have projects that they bring to us that will help advance knowledge in the video game industry. These are things that will be commercialized in some of our games, or could be published in research papers and could be of benefit to the entire industry ultimately. So the video game industry has always been at the cutting edge of graphics, of play genres, of connections, of social connections. So that advanced research is really helping to further that knowledge within the industry.
Right. Dan?
Yeah, what he said. No, I mean, I think it's certainly one thing I've noticed in my experience is, gaming companies really raise all boats. Right? I mean, as the companies set up, and, we talked about those importance of those large companies, right? I think that is something, I've seen that firsthand, having lived and worked in Montreal, similar in Vancouver, like prime examples of the examples Julian was making, how those large companies start to set off other companies, which is magnificent. But the other thing that starts to happen is you start to have those companies that support games companies start to level up. So that's like, you've got consultants, legal, accounting, all of these professional industries start to grow up around and start to understand, legal, as we move to mobile and different types of gaming, like the legal requirements change. So you start to get all of these collaborative businesses around it that start to grow. Another thing I've noticed and I think is interesting is, we talk about, we're talking a lot today about tech companies and things like that, but there's an entire other ecosystem that starts to form. I started my career at Ubisoft a really long time ago in 1999 in Montreal when Ubisoft was quite small. And what was just fascinating is as the company grew, you just started to see the neighborhoods around it transform, right? Like things like restaurants and cafes and bars and all of these cool things just started to grow, and it just transformed entire neighborhoods around it. Which was just really fascinating. So there's certainly, I think, you get all of these other tech companies that spring out of it and consult like that. But you also have these entire other industries that start to grow up around it. And I think a final point, I've been very proud to see that, people in games tend to be very active in their communities. They're interested in contributing. They're interested in donating to good causes and things like that. And, these are well-paying jobs with well-intentioned people. So, people really want to make a difference. And I found there's a large group, groupings of those in the games industry. So you also start to see those other community benefits as well.
Couldn't agree more with that. So let's talk about Ontario now. We've seen Canada is very successful, but in Ontario, we only have 20% of the jobs in our industry. But we boast 40% of the population. So why is that? Julien, any comments on this?
Well, you kind of said it there that the video game industry in Ontario is doing fantastic. There's a huge rate of growth, but in terms of the number of companies, we have the most amount of companies in Ontario compared to other provinces. So the industry is quite healthy. That said, I think there's still a missing tranche within the industry that could be better served, and that's the kind of the larger companies, medium and larger companies. Those seem to be missing from the Ontario ecosystem. There's obviously a few of those large companies, but there's probably room to grow in Ontario, as you mentioned, There's only about 20% of the entire jobs are in Ontario. So that there's an untapped potential. And I think what's really critical for Ontario as a jurisdiction is that we have to be careful not to become the labor farm for the rest of the world. We're training this wonderful talent at our colleges and universities, and with the new work from home or work from anywhere dynamics that are the legacies of the pandemic, these highly skilled workers have an opportunity to work for a company that's not based here in Ontario. So creating jobs here in this province and creating opportunities right here in Ontario, I think, is the best way to keep that talent, avoid a brain drain from the jurisdiction. And the sky's the limit when it comes to Ontario's potential in the video game industry. Yeah. And one more thing that I'd like to add too is Ontario and indeed Canada is extremely well positioned when it comes to immigration in order to be able to attract senior level talent, which is so critical to companies' ability to impart knowledge to junior staff, to lead projects, to make a difference in terms of companies' ability to deliver on committed commitments or projects that they've announced. So that immigration advantage really shouldn't be discounted. And then again, Ontario has everything to offer for new immigrants coming to Ontario, and the video game industry has been extremely welcoming to immigrants through the temporary foreign worker program or others to set up here in the province.
One thing that I would add on what Julian just said is that Ontario has been playing a little bit the catch-up role. Like we've been seeing our industry coming after the others, so there's still a lot of competitions for the good job, and the existing jurisdictions are trying to pull. But Ontario has all the right ingredients in order to succeed. We have in Ontario, we have a very good program to accelerate the small companies. It's called the Interactive Digital Media Fund, and it's a program that helps small companies to bring their projects on and help financing their project. And it's a very, very good for the small. And that's why we see a lot of small studios. One of the provinces where we have the largest number of small studios. We already said towards this presentation that we have access to talent, the education as well, everything is there. So what we need is really to find how to attract the bigger player now that we have everything for the smaller players. Last Thursday, in the fall economic statement, the government of Ontario sent us a very, very good message stating that they would continue to explore opportunities to work with the digital media industry to attract more investment and create the jobs in Ontario. We believe that only slight improvements to the business conditions here would make an Ontario winner in the competitions to get the biggest part of the game industry. This includes minor adjustments to the existing incentive that the Ontario is already doing, making this province one of the best in the country for our sectors. And it is a very powerful message that, as the government like to say, the Ontario is open for business.
So the next question would be, what does the video game industry bring to the Ontario economy, and why should the province attract new investments and create new jobs in our industry? Wilson.
Yeah, in order to compete in our industry, you really need multidisciplinary companies with very strong engineering, creative and design talent, data engineers and data analysts, product managers, marketing. These are all disciplines that are in high demand and that are very transferable for any digital company. So really, when you're asking about investment in this sector, you're really investing in building the workforce of the future for our digital economy. And in our industry, we have very highly skilled and pretty high average salaries as well. So these are the jobs of the future, and that's what you're really building when you invest in our industry.
To add to that, I think, it's interesting. I took a brief sojourn from gaming, speaking about adaptability of skills, and I worked in education at Microsoft for a long period of time. And doing that, I had the ability to work with a lot of governments who are looking ultimately for a lot of the same things, right? They want to create a future-ready workforce with technical skills. creative thinking, adaptability, resilience, all of these things, which is exactly what you're putting out with game development professionals, right? I mean, I think it is one of the most adaptable workforces that you're actually going to see. Let me give you a few examples. So, I have seen people go from gaming to start artificial intelligence companies, to film and animation, to VR and AR. And, you get a workforce that's actually quite in demand by other industries, right? Again, while I was at Microsoft and we were working on artificial intelligence, we pulled people in from the gaming groups, similar for our AR and VR efforts, right? We pulled people in from the gaming groups because these are people working on really hard problems all the time. So you've got an incredibly resilient, adaptable workforce. I mean, I know people in the industry who've gone to work at Tesla. Just like all of these like fantastic, really bleeding edge industries are pulling from the games industry. So it's really a fantastic investment in developing a STEM workforce and an adaptable workforce that are going to not only be ready for the jobs of the future, but frankly, creating those jobs of the future as well.
Yeah. And Jean-Sylvain mentioned that small adjustments to the province incentive program would make a huge difference. But what else can Ontario do to level up its video game industry? Starting with Dan.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think the things we've already talked about are certainly really important. I mean, two things I would add, and I think we heard about those a bit at the beginning. Outreach. I think outreach is really important outside of the country, outside of the province. Just letting folks know that this is a place that is welcoming, that we're going to help you get started, that we're going to get you set up on the right foot. And, second, I'd say for me, a lot always just comes back to continuing that investment in education. There are some great institutions already in the province. Getting more is always good. Increasing investment is always good. Getting more kids into the pipeline is fantastic, right? These are technical careers, and I would love to see more work happening. I talk about awareness outside and bringing folks in, but also awareness inside to let kids know that this is a viable job for you that's, not only quite lucrative, but is going to set you up really well for the future.
Wilson?
Yeah, and we're now in an environment where issues like cost of living, affordable housing, and work-life balance are intensifying because of the work from home or work from anywhere paradigm that we're now in. So anything that can be done on the tax credit side and really ensuring that those programs and policies are reflective of the changed workforce would help our industry compete, not only within Ontario relative to other provinces, but globally as well.
So we have a few minutes left. I have burning questions for you all. In one sentence, and maybe a bit more because we have more time, what's next for your companies? So let's start with Jean-Sylvain.
So our studio, I mentioned it, we've tripled during the pandemic. We certainly want to continue our growth. We're working on incredible titles, and we're lucky enough to be partnering with some great companies on really good things. So we'll continue our growth on our studio in Ottawa. We want really to be I would say like a beacon for game development in the Northern Ontario region. And we really want to continue to foster the positive cultures we have done at our studio. So we're very excited about the future.
Julien?
I mean, Ubisoft continues to churn out some fantastic titles. I'm excited about Avatar that's coming next year, and Just Dance is coming out just now. At the Toronto studio, we just finished a massive endeavor, which is the Far Cry 6. So we're extremely proud of that title in Toronto. A huge accomplishment for the team to deliver such an ambitious game. And we'll be making some announcements on what's next at the studio in the coming months, but it's continuing to push boundaries, to tell innovative stories. That's kind of in Ubisoft's DNA. So you'll expect more of that.
Wilson.
Yeah, so continuing our growth as well. I think one of the immediate things we'll be doing in the new year is welcoming our team back. We'll be opening up the office again. So that will be nice. You know, getting in-person meetings again, and you know, recapturing some of the things that underpinned our culture. So we're all looking forward to that as well. And then, you know, continuing the growth of our business. So improving the existing games that have launched. And also we have a few things in the hopper right now that we're working on, and hopefully we'll be able to share that with everyone in the new year. Dan?
Yeah, you know, it's a fun time for that question, because as I said, we're just coming after our 15-year anniversary, you know, so we're very much proud of that and looking forward to what comes next. You know, similar to what you've heard, we've got some really fantastic titles we're working on that we're excited to continue development on. You know, we're working on, you know, bringing our teams back into the office safely, you know, when the time is right. So we're investing a lot of time and energy into that. You know, and we're excited to continue growing out here, right? Like Canada has been amazing for us. You know, we've won some awards. Won a Best Place to Work award last week, and you know, Game Developer Studio of the Year about 6 months ago. So you know, we're having a lot of fun here in Canada, and we're looking forward to continuing to grow out our studio, bring more folks on, and continue to, you know, work with our colleagues here as well. You know, I mentioned how welcoming the industry has been to us since we've come here. I think, you know, that's a bit for us on display here today, and we're looking forward to continuing to work with our colleagues to promote the industry in the province.
In fact, congrats on winning that Best Place to Work award. And
thank you.
Sylvain as well, Snowden won the same award. So we have on this panel 2 companies that just won Best Place to Work in a video game studio in Canada. So we're very proud of this. We have a few minutes left, and one thing I love about our industry is the fantastic jobs that we're creating. We've been talking about the techno-creative jobs, and you know, if one of you wants to talk about what type of careers do people have in our industry, what type of jobs? So anyone?
Maybe I can go first. I mean, maybe others can tell you more about some of the various streams. I'm always just fascinated to learn who we hire at Ubisoft and for what reason. We have historians on staff. You know, Assassin's Creed is a game franchise that's steeped in history, in real world history. So they research these locations to exacting perfection to really create you know, these worlds that really bring you a huge immersive experience into these worlds,
which are used in education. Sorry to throw fly onto that. I mean, those are research to the point of accuracy that they are used in schools to actually teach history. So I didn't want to.
No, you made my point. In terms of the real world. Richness that comes through to this game. So that's just one area that I'm always fascinated by, and in terms of the job streams, but there are obviously many others.
Yeah. Anyone else?
What I like is that we're creating also career paths for people. So I'm always excited when I see someone entering as a tester for a game and then like asking for a move, let alone move into the productions, and I don't know, starting as a junior engineers, and we can basically create whole career paths for those developers that really wants to grow in that industry. And if they start at the base of the scale, they can quickly evolve to be like those high-paying jobs and everything. So we're really creating long-time careers for those people.
Anyone else before we wrap up on this?
Yeah, I mean, the jobs in the industry really cross the spectrum, right? It's fascinating to think about. So there are the traditional jobs, right? Like producers and programmers and artists and animators and designers. Everyone that you would think would be involved in bringing it. But then, there's all of those support teams as well, because you're still running a business, right? From finance people to legal people to operations and human resources. And then, roles that would surprise you, similar to what, Julien mentioned. There are economists on games, right? That are balancing the economy. There are people who are doing, outreach to the community. Another fantastic thing is we've talked about how, the industry has evolved and grown up, right? Like to include things like, roles around diversity and inclusion and university relations and outreach into the local community. And there are studios and companies that have, charitable giving roles and, roles around, volunteer support and things like that. So it's been fascinating just to watch the industry evolve. And, as people who are focused on environmental issues, within companies. So, there are roles completely outside of what people would expect just around that core development.
So
yeah, that's right. Certainly the supporting roles, and I an example of that in finance. But we self-publish our games, so marketing has been a very big part of our success and building the competency there. We're in the free-to-play games industry with very complex virtual economies. So I've heard companies hiring economists to bring on to manage all of that, because that is a healthy in-game economy is critical to the financial success of a game. So yeah, just echoing what everyone else said, as games grow in complexity and the businesses around those games grow in complexity, there's going to be more and more roles, and as we branch out into various disciplines.
So we have 0 seconds left, but I want to thank the panel for your insights. I hope we've conveyed, we have an exciting industry. We're poised to grow for decades to come in Ontario. We're ready to roll up our sleeves and work with all stakeholders to make it happen, because we have all it takes in Ontario to be a leader worldwide. So thank you, panelists, MPP, UREC, organizers, Ubisoft for organizing this as well. Have a nice day. Au revoir.